What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Titletown South Florida, the Miami Herald's high school football show. I'm Andre Fernandez, Deputy Sports Editor and your host, joined once again by Miami Herald's writer David Wilson, back with us for another episode. David, again, that time of year, down to the final month of the regular season pretty soon, and the epic games are here. How you doing? Have you recovered from that? This isn't a Canes show, but I have to mention it. Have you recovered from that gut punch of a loss they had Saturday night?
I still, like, every 20 minutes or so, or think to myself, like, what the heck were they like? I still can't believe it. It's like it comes like it just comes in waves of like every once in a while I think back to it, and I'm still gobsmacked, flabbergasted, dumbstruck, and any
of those words,
old-timey adjective you can come up with on any of those.
Yeah, well, it's funny because we're going to show a few clips on this show of Canes commits, but of course, I spoke to them before that disaster happened, so who knows what they're thinking.
Well, and then the next day they get a top 60 wide receiver from New York, I think, commits. So, like,
well, there you go.
It's Mario, right? He's the one thing you cannot deny is he can recruit.
He's the salesman. Yep, for sure. Well, remember, everybody, if you're watching this, you can also catch it on YouTube. It's available there, and of course at MiamiHerald.com. We appreciate you watching this show as always. Let's just start with the big result of the week. I mean, some people called it an upset, but I think it's more of a reminder that Homestead is still a state title contender, a huge win over Columbus. They get on the board early. Actually, Columbus, the one gets on the board early. They took a 10-0 lead early on. It looked like it was going to be status quo. Here's Alberto Mendoza, the quarterback for the Explorers, finding Bryce Fitzgerald in the corner of the end zone. Yeah, so Fitzgerald, as we know, a state champion in basketball with Belen, transferred over to Columbus, had the big catch there, also had an INT later in this game. But it was Homestead doing the rallying. Isaac Brown, the Louisville commit, returns a kickoff 99 yards that pretty much set the tone for this comeback. And after that, it was the connection of Josh Townsend, the quarterback for the Broncos, and receiver Cortez Mills. Here's the first connection in the end zone. And then later on, Townsend, the Mills, working it again. Another touchdown pass right here. Then it was up to Homestead's defense. They're the ones that came up with the picks. 4 INTs in this game of Alberto Mendoza. Here's a look at the final 2 that were crucial to the victory. Yeah, that second one. I like that kid, Eduardo Nunez, a lot. I mean, we know how huge he was in the state final last year. I mean, Homestead now, they were a major threat once again, kind of reminded everybody, like I said before, I think that's when people are like, oh, this is an upset, I'm like, yes, but no, not really. The Broncos are good.
Yeah, I think we've talked a little bit about Columbus. Fantastic defense. Their offense has been a little spotty this year. There's 2 teams, like obviously Columbus won the state title last year. Homestead did not. Homestead, I mean, I would guess they were the best team in the state not to win a state title last year. They challenged St. Thomas Aquinas like pretty much no one else did. And as you know, you mentioned Eduardo Nunez back, obviously Josh Townsend back. Like they kind of didn't lose a ton from last year. A lot of those guys who are important players, seniors now, whether it's an Isaac Brown or Nunez is a senior now, right? Or an upperclassman at least. They've got a lot of good players and experienced players and guys who have played in a lot of big games. And I mean, I think you're right. They're still very much in the mix in 3M, which is kind of suddenly, I saw Coconut Creek a couple of weeks back, like nearly pull off an upset against Chaminade. Like 3M is suddenly, I think, 2M is obviously like the that's what everyone's looking forward to. But 3M is suddenly feels very wide open down here.
Yeah, it still feels like St. Thomas is at the top, but
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like there's more contenders that are legit. Like they said, Homestead, Creek.
Homestead and Coconut Creek have made statements. I know Creek lost, but those are statement performances in the last 2 weeks.
And there's 2 teams looming in Orlando too. Jones is still good, and Edgewater's been making a lot of noise. So it could be a few of those teams toward the end of it, those final 3 rounds in 3M to make it interesting. But here's Townsend talking about the victory. Josh, this time last year, I know you guys had a big statement win over Northwestern, and then everything kind of took off, went to state. Do you feel like tonight was something similar where you got that big win, that this might be the launch to go back?
This the year. Palmetto caught us earlier in the season. I feel like we really need that, and this gave us the push we got it this year.
Tell about when you and Cortez, you got something out these last few years,
right? Man, we connect like Wi-Fi. Ain't no stopping us.
When this offense gets going, man, big plays, it seems like you can beat anybody if it's just clicking the way it did tonight.
Yeah, once we get to clicking, it ain't no stopping us, man. Yeah. It's just over once we get to clicking.
Yeah. How big was Isaac's return? I mean, it looked like that sparked everybody.
We went in our special formation, and Isaac broke. We knew the game was over then. That kid's special.
Yeah, been good to get him back in the backfield too, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about how you doing right now as far as college goes, and what's the latest with you right now?
I'm waiting on Fort Valley, and I'm supposed to be going to visit them late in December, so we're chilling right now. I'm just waiting to go win states, and then everything will fall in place then.
Yeah, kind of put it until December, focus on the season right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Congratulations. Yeah, and this kid, I mean, I like him a lot. I think he's got a lot of heart, but he's, recruiters, what they look for. Maybe he's not the prototypical size-wise kid that they look for, but, I mean, I wonder why it's just been so hard to come by for this kid to get offers, David.
Yeah, it's, the size obviously is the number one thing, right? But, we've seen a lot of good undersized quarterbacks come out of South Florida in recent years. I mean, K'Wan Jenkins, obviously starting at FIU as a freshman. Zion Turner, who went to UConn out of St. Thomas Aquinas, started games as a freshman there last year. Townsend, I think probably he does it a lot with his legs, right? And he's a smaller guy. But you understand why recruiters would be a little reticent to go after him, but he makes all the throws. He makes great plays with his legs, and you mentioned the toughness, the moxie, whatever you want to call it. He's got all those intangibles, and he's doing it at Homestead, which is it's not no disrespect to K1 and Zion, who are great players. They were doing it at St. Thomas Aquinas and Central. You're going to get noticed there pretty easily, I think. Not that Homestead is not going to get noticed at this point, but Josh Townsend's there's a lot of reasons why Homestead has gone from being irrelevant to being one of the best teams in the state, and he is right up there on the list. He might be number one. I think he started as a freshman there, so it's he's been the cog for this entire run for them.
Yeah, him and Ennio Yapur are very similar in the way that they've become the quote unquote the franchise guys for those schools
and similar players. Ennio's a little bigger. Ennio's a little bigger, right? And I think that physicality that Ennio has, you look at the height, a
little bulkier, right?
Yeah, you look at the height with him, and you're like, but you see the frame, the size, and you think maybe a little bit more durable. But similar players and just winners.
Yeah, in similar situations where again they're having trouble maybe getting those bigger offers because of all those factors, but maybe they sign on to one of these group of 5 teams or something like that and just make a big name for themselves. But one kid not having a problem getting offers, he's a 2025 kid, and that was Mills. I mean, he's got a ton already. Here was what he had to say about the connection he's had with Townsend there, the chemistry they have, and his recruiting status. Talk about just the victory. This time last year, you guys had a big win over Northwestern that kind of launched you on the path to the state. Do you feel like this is something similar where you made a big statement win like this?
Yes, sir. We came out slow at the beginning of the season. Everybody was down on us. We came out here, we did our thing, we showed out, and we played our type of ball, Homestead ball.
How do you feel about, just tell me about the chemistry you and Josh have. You've had it for years, but those big plays down there that you're able to get, the 2 touchdowns before the half.
Me and Josh been working real hard on and off, on off season. So we already had it down pat. He seen what was open and he took the shot and I made the play.
Yeah. Tell me about, when this offense can do that, make big plays like that, it just seems like it's unstoppable. I mean, what's the sky's the limit for this team, I'm sure.
Yes, sir. When we all on the right track, all on the same page, be unstoppable. Nobody can stop us.
How you doing right now, college-wise? Like, what's going on with you? What's the latest?
College-wise, recruitment been going great. I got schools like Louisville, LSU, Clemson, Florida Gators, FSU, all type of big schools connecting with me right now.
Yeah. What's that been like just to hear from all those schools, and what's that kind of been like now with, during the season, and how are you handling all that?
It really been a dream come true. I'm just staying humble. and just doing my thing.
What are you looking for in a school? Like, what will be the perfect school for you?
I'm looking for a school who throw that rock because I'm a receiver, and I'm looking for a school who's going to treat me like family on and off the field.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to head over to Travis Powell, which really was the Mecca once again, earning its nickname this weekend. Had almost two major upsets in 2 games there.
This was almost like, it was a really good weekend of games, but this was almost like a giant weekend of upsets and stuff like that.
It could have been. It was only maybe a couple plays away from really being that back-to-back nights. But let's go in order, and let's go Thursday night. Booker T and Norland were out there. We knew they were both trying to make a statement. The Tornadoes almost made that statement. If it wouldn't have been maybe one more play or avoided an injury, which we'll talk about. The big reason was Claudell Sherman, their quarterback. Here's an early touchdown pass to Anton Smith, who came right up to my camera and gave everybody a message.
That's one.
Later on, Booker T's defense kept things rolling. Another 2025 stud right here. 4-star corner Ben Hanks collects this ball, returns it 57 yards for a touchdown to give him a 12-0 lead. But then Norland came up huge. Ivory Akins, a 2-way player for them, returned the kickoff for a touchdown right before the half, kind of got Norland back in it. Sherman, though, had the Vikings defense fooled all night. Every time they ran RPOs, they had Norland guessing where the ball was going. Here's a touchdown that made it 19-7. But here's that injury we were talking about. Sherman goes down early in the 4th quarter. Appeared to be a shoulder injury. I've heard it could be a collarbone. Point being, changed the momentum of the game entirely. Booker T's offense pretty much went in the tank after that. And Enio Yapur brought Norland back, first with a touchdown pass to Akins, which you'll see right here. Then Booker T's special teams, kind of a major screw up here. It gave Norland great field position on this blunder. And that led to Yapur's score. He hadn't been able to really run all night. He was getting chased all over the field. He got sacked 8 times, which is something we'll talk about later with their offensive line. But here, you see him how fired up he was when he got in the end zone finally. And then Isaiah Scott, another one of those two-way players, gets a huge catch to set up the TD. As we said before, here's the game-winning INT. And I was able to talk to Scott after the game, see what he had to say. Scott, an FIU target, another kid trying to get some offers himself.
Isaiah, just tell me about, you made 2 big plays toward the end of the game on offense and defense. I guess let's talk about the catch that set up the score. What did you see on that play over the middle?
He was kind of playing like inside, so we had ran hitch and go. So as soon as I sprint and got on him, I seen the ball and I made a play on it. I had to make a diving catch. I wish I could have stayed up and scored, but hey, I made a great play, got my team to score. So we went up 2019.
And 2-way threat on the back, you get the big INT to finish it off. You want to tell me what you saw there?
Oh, I seen the ball. You see ball, play ball. Hey, hey, we're athletes around here, so we gotta make the plays.
What does this do for you guys? Not just to win the game, but the way you won the game, coming back, fighting back. You know, what did that do for you guys?
It just showed what type of team we is when we down a lot, and we can just fight back without like all the pressure, the crowd, the media. Like we know what type of team we are, and we know we can strive through them type of environments, and we know we can make a big comeback and win.
How much confidence does it take now going into next week? Another big one, obviously, with Central.
This big confidence because we know if we down, we can come back. If we know we up, we got to keep that lead. So this is gonna bring a lot. This is gonna bring us together. This is gonna bring us more together, and we just gotta work this next week. When we play Central, it's go time.
Yeah, so Scott, kind of another kid, you know, not a quarterback, but another kid kind of under the radar. Some of these skill players that Norland has that are game breakers, but maybe, again, not the prototypical guy you're looking for. But FIU seems to be recruiting Scott.
Yeah, I think I actually bumped into Mike McIntyre at a game the other day. I think they're doing the right thing at FIU, right? That you look at their recruiting class, and it is a lot of these South Florida guys that we talk about, and we're like, oh, why? Like, you know, they'll be guys who are first team all county guys, right? They're not the biggest recruits in the world, but they're, you know, super productive guys with a flaw, undersized, you know, what a little, you know, not ideal speed, whatever it might be. FIU, obviously FAU, I think has done this. They've kind of, I think, owned that level of kid here in South Florida for, you know, the last 5-6, you know, they've had a really good run of coaches up there in Boca. FIU getting in the mix too, which is, you know, there's no reason that FIU shouldn't be able to be a pretty good G5 program. I think with the talent down here, there's lots of, you know, there's too many good players to go around.
Yeah, definitely. It's a surplus down here as always, but Norland survives that one. Now Friday night, I wasn't sure what to make of this game after Northwestern's had such a, you know, rough start because of their youth and whatnot, but they're starting to pick up momentum and very nearly pulled off an upset here against Miami Central. So here's a couple of big plays early by Northwestern's defense, which was really impressive, stopping the run, even forced a couple turnovers early on. Yeah, when you look at this Bulls defense, I mean, they're young, but they're talented. I mean, they've still got kids. I mean, you look at sophomore Desmond Johnson made a big play there. Defensive end Zion Perret is good. Jarvis Hill, I didn't have the video of that one, but he picked off a screen pass, took it back 35 yards, and Northwestern was leading at the half 10-7 over Central, had everybody staring at their phones trying to see an update of this game. But Central's defense is star-studded for a reason. The defensive MVP of this game was the 5-star commit Armando Blunt. Had 4 sacks, by my count, might have had more on Friday. Here's one that he had that was a game changer late in the game. And then here comes another commit rumbling in, making a big play. Vince Shavers forced the fumble here that swung the momentum even more. At that point, it was just up to Central's offense to do something. Quarterback Antonio Smith put the Rockets ahead for good with this touchdown pass. Beautiful fade into the corner of the end zone to Khalil Sterling. And finally, it was the FSU commit that put the finishing touches on it. LaWayne McCoy, who caught 6 passes in the game, ended up being the offensive MVP of this game, but came up with the game-winning interception. And now here's a word with that offensive MVP, LaWayne McCoy.
Wayne, you're no stranger to playing both ways on the field, making big plays on both sides. Can you talk about that coming through tonight when your team was tested the way they were?
I know my coach said he needed me to go to that DB, and he told me you're going to be in position to make the play, and I just made the play.
Yeah, talk about what you saw that last play. It was their last chance, and you're able to get that pick.
It was 8 seconds on the clock, so me knowing, I just knew they were going to just take a shot to the end zone. So I just went straight back to the end zone and just jumped for the ball.
Yeah. When you're in a tough battle like this, I mean, the battles you've had this year already, how much faith does that give you that no matter what happens, you guys are going to pull through at the end?
You know, we always fight to the end. You know, that's what we rocking football. That's what we do. We fight to the end. We never make no excuses, nothing like that. So,
Mondo, tell me about just Northwestern. Did you expect that they'd come out and take their best shot and give you a ball game the way they did? I mean,
well, they played their best game, but we came out on top. I was coming to have fun. Our coach told us, relax this game and do what you do. Don't be too stuck up and just play your game. So that's what I did.
What have you learned just being on this team, these battles every week?
Coach Moore and Coach Dre, Coach Drew, all the coaching staff, they put us through hell and back. So the summertime, a big game out here, we don't have 1,000 big games in practice during the summer. We don't been through the worst. So when we get out here, it's just like muscle memory.
A lot of sacks tonight, a lot of big stops. You know, defense, this team's defense has really won a lot of games this year. I mean, talk about just the chemistry you guys have up front.
Can you say that again?
Just the chemistry you guys have up front as a defensive front.
Well, the D-line, we like brothers. The whole summer we went to go get food together. We just stayed together the whole summer. Then if I call one of the D-linemen in the middle of the night, it could be 3 o'clock, they gonna answer. Cause I've been here for not even a whole year yet, but I feel like we already brothers, and we is brothers.
Ask you about Miami and the season they're having. What do you think is just what the U's been able to accomplish already?
Miami is dominating, and they bring it back to old Miami.
What do you think? The big game's coming up with North Carolina. You have any plans to go to any of the games coming up? Or?
I'm going to the game tomorrow.
Oh, you're going tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, Georgia Tech. Okay.
Blunt is just a monster, though. Like,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this next game against Norland because, Norland may have all those guys up front, but Armando is fun to watch. He is constantly in that backfield. I mean, David, I don't know if you saw him when he was at Dillard, but I never got to. And I think it was because, obviously, we cover a lot more Central games. But
Right.
he is phenomenal. I think he's going to add so much when he gets there and joins Ruben Bain and those guys.
Yeah, I saw him a couple times at Dillard last year. The physicality was always what stood out. He was not quite as productive, although I think he still had like 18 sacks or something last year. Obviously, they didn't go as deep into the playoffs as Central has. These last couple of years when Ruben Bain's had like 47 sacks or whatever it feels like it is.
Yeah.
But his physicality is really impressive. I think we've discussed it. He was a shot put state champion a couple years ago. And Central, clearly, they know how to put, Jude Joseph, the head coach there, was the defensive coordinator for most of this run. He just knows how to put the guys in position to succeed. And, their front seven every year has so much, the problem is, right, you can't just double team him, right? Or
Right.
You got Vincent Shaver standing behind him. Like their front seven has been so dynamic for the last couple of years. And he, and he's a similar kind of guy to Ruben Bain, I think too, right? A big defensive end. Like those guys are just mismatch nightmares at the high school level.
Yeah, and they showed it this week once again. A few games to go through here really, really fast. American Heritage took down Western 28-14. Western had a chance, though. They were played Heritage pretty tough. They're picking up they have a few losses, 3-3, but looks like they're picking up momentum toward a district title there. A big game this weekend against Cypress Bay. Miami High, we haven't talked about the Stingerees, but a huge win for playoff positioning. They beat longtime rival Coral Gables last week. The Stingerees take on Goldman this coming week, might have a shot at the playoffs after all. And Chaminade doing their thing again, 55-20. They were challenged a little bit early by Dillard, but were able to pull away. Didn't end up going down to the wire like it did with Creek. So now the Lions are 7-0, still the top-ranked team of all these national powerhouses in South Florida. They have a week off, and then they're probably going to speed through that district heading into the playoffs. But let's talk a little bit about now. We talked a little bit about our stars of the week. Our player of the week polls are up as usual at MiamiHerald.com. So vote for your favorite players. Remember, they're not behind the paywall. They're free to vote as many times as you want. A shout out to the Ferguson volleyball team, which won their third GMAC title in a row, led by Agatha Gonzalez, a two-time all-day selection. Melissa Gonzalez from Doral Academy totaled 127 assists overall as she led the Firebirds to wins over Venice, North Carolina team, McMichael High School, Ponte Vedra and Gainesville at the Venice Invitational. Then a few football stars, Isaac Brown, who we mentioned before in here, ended up running for 122 yards and 2 TDs in that game in addition to the kickoff return. Armando Blunt, we mentioned, 4 sacks, several tackles for loss in that game that went over Northwestern. Alejandro Isaza, we've talked about him in the past, but it's been a while. Archbishop Carroll, 186 yards, 5 touchdowns on only 9 carries as they beat Somerset South Homestead. And on the bowling scene, Evan Veneer, the bowler of the year for us last year, had a 646 high series this week. He's having a good season. And in Broward, Grace Finneran of Aquinas won a cross-country championship at the Larry Wooten Invitational last week with a 1917. A big win for West Broward, beat previously unbeaten South Broward on the football field. Carlos Morales had an interception and forced a fumble to help the Bobcats take that game. The Bobcats are now 4-2. They might win their district as well from the looks of it. Kenley Israel, a defensive end who had a good year last year, having another good one this season, led Everglades to a win over Flanagan. 3.5 sacks, 9 tackles in that game. And then University School, 6-0. We actually have them on our picks of the week this week as they have a battle of unbeatens. Jock Dixon ran the ball 23 times for 109 yards and 3 touchdowns to lead them to a win over North Broward Prep. So that overall, the players of the week, remember, vote for them as many times as you want. And now it's picks of the week time. David, I think 2 games I'll just mention briefly because I think we're in agreement of who's going to win these games. Western, I think, playing Cypress Bay this week is one that I think the Wildcats, even though Cypress Bay has had a good year, 5-1, but probably the Wildcats have too much for them. And then another game that could determine a district title, Palmetto playing South Dade, another improved team in South Dade, but I think we both agree Palmetto, the defense has stepped up this year. Other than figuring out how to beat Columbus, the Panthers seem to be a lot better. But that unbeaten game is the first of the ones we really want to dive into.
Yeah.
U School and Westminster Academy. I mean, I haven't, to be honest, I have not seen these teams in person, but they tweet at me all the time with highlights. They always want to have some of that love, some of that recognition. And they're both 6-0. I mean, they're independents. This is a big game for them on that part of it, trying to go for their independent championships. 2 quarterbacks that I think are leading high-scoring offenses, Anthony Barber from Westminster Academy, Jet Yergolaitis for U School. It's an interesting one on a Thursday night. I mean, it could be a fun game. I kind of think U School might have the advantage just by a little bit, but I don't know. Could be one of those toss-up fun games between 2 private schools that in Broward.
Yeah, I had U School in this one too, but the highlight here is the 2 quarterbacks, right? Anthony Barber, who was one of the most productive quarterbacks in South Florida last year, obviously doing it a little under the radar at an independent school. And Jet Yergolaitis, who's had a good year last year, and it seems like he's taken another step forward this year. So those are 2, could be a shootout with quarterbacks like that on either side of the ball.
Yeah, I think it'll be one of those games. I mean, the running game at U School has been pretty good too. Mm-hmm. We'll see if it steps up there. Both are high-scoring teams. This could be a shootout. Southridge and Homestead down at Harris Field, 7:30. The Broncos coming off the huge win against Columbus. It's their, as Coach Thornton said, their revenge tour. Yeah. They got Columbus back. Southridge was the one that got them last year, even though they won the rematch later on. I still think they own this. They own the South right now. So the Spartans are better, but I think the Broncos have too much.
Yeah, I was at that game last year when Southridge pulled the upset at home. Josh Townsend got hurt and didn't play. That was right. Kind of the story. It was, this Southridge team's really good. Pierre Senadis has done an incredible job with them over the last couple of years. They can definitely score. They've got one of the best receiver tandems in the state, probably with Glenn Smith and Jaquan Reed. But Homestead, they're like, it's a rivalry game, right? But I think the fact that they lost last year, they're like they're going to be ready for this one. Yeah.
Right. They're not going to slip up in this one. They're going to be too fired up for it. Plantation at Dillard, an intriguing one here. 2 good teams in Broward. Plantation came out on such fire early in the season, scoring like crazy. Mm-hmm. Then they were just completely shut down by Coconut Creek, bounced back last week. Dillard has that kind of a defense that can maybe give them some problems, but I have a feeling Plantation might have learned from that Creek game. I think this is the game where maybe they show a little something and get a nice win over a good team in Broward County.
Yeah, I like Dillard here. And the big thing I like about them, they're 2-3, but their 3 losses: Naples, Cardinal, Gibbons, Chaminade. They've like really tested themselves. Obviously they hung pretty well with Chaminade last week for a half, basically. So I think, they got to start winning games. Obviously at 2-3 halfway through the season, like you got to win probably 6 or 7 to make the playoffs. But I think their turnaround could start now because they've tested themselves so much in the first half of this year.
You might get me on that one. I think Dillard's tough at home too. You never know.
Yeah, home game too, right? Yep.
Yeah. So this is the one where I'm actually rolling the dice. I have a feeling there's something weird could happen here, and maybe not so weird. Northwestern showed me something. They're playing Booker T Thursday night against at Traspal, at 7:00. The Bulls, I think, when I looked at that team, yes, maybe they don't have the numbers they used to, but they still have good players. They were in that game, almost pulled it off. I think they're going to pull this off. And I think more than anything, too, is since Claudel Sherman doesn't sound like he's going to be able to play in this game, that's going to hurt the Tornadoes. And the Tornadoes, by the way, are playing this game on Thursday. Then they're playing a game against Edison, which barely started, only played 2 minutes. That was rained out. Both of those are huge for that district. That's only within a 5-day span. And then they have to turn around and play South Dade in the GMAC week. So they're playing 3 games in a span of 8 days. And Claudel Sherman might not play in any of those games. So this one's going to be tough for them to face that Bulls defense. If they can't run the ball, Northwestern contained the Rockets running game too, which was also impressive to see. I think the Bulls are going to pull it off. I think we've been saying that they're going to get a chance to bite someone. This might be the week.
Yeah, with Claudel Sherman out, it's definitely the chance. Booker T, though, I think with that Sherman injury, like Ice Harris knows like this could spiral quickly. I think this is going to be a really low-scoring game. This Northwestern team, I think we were, Johnny Lee Harris is an offensive guy. We were curious about what this defense was going to look like. It's been like spectacular, pretty much for the last month. They won a game. What was that? It's like 9-2 up in Cardinal Newman or something.
7-2.
7-2. Yeah, like their defense is spectacular. And it does kind of feel like they're going to get someone at some point the way they've been playing. But I'm going to go with Booker T here because I think the ice factor and the fact that they've got this tough stretch coming up, and they know they can't screw around because this region is so competitive.
Yeah. Well, and the similarity there is Cardinal Newman had lost their quarterback too.
Right. Yes.
And Northwestern won that defensive struggle. So even if this does happen, let's say the upset does happen, I do think Booker T, and I picked it that way in the column that I wrote this week, I think they bounce back and beat Edison. And the funny part is this could create kind of like, remember last year in the Crop South Broward District when it all came down to points? It could create the same situation between the 3 teams, and Booker T may still end up at the top because their rating is so good from the schedule they play. So I think if anything, the Bulls maybe play their way into the playoffs if they could pull this one off, kind of solidify that a little bit. But the big one at Traz this week, once again, involves Norland, and this is the one they've circled since the offseason. It's them and Central. They get their first chance. It could be their first of 2 because they always could meet in the playoffs again. But this is their chance to make a statement, to really show. I mean, last week didn't really inspire a lot of confidence overall because they were really close to getting beat by Booker T. Had that injury not happened, who knows what could have happened. But more than anything, I think their offensive line has to play a lot better. They gave up 8 sacks, and if their O-line does not play well, Central with Blunt and everybody else, they're going to just tee off on Ennio and chase him around, do the same thing the Tornadoes did, though. I think the experience of Central, I've got to give them the benefit of the doubt, at least in the first matchup. I think that in the end, that may be the deciding factor, especially if they can run the ball. I know quarterback edge should go to Ennio and to Norland, but I don't know. I got to give the Rockets, at least going in, the benefit of the doubt. I think they're going to win, but it's going to be, again, like you said, the Northwestern game was going to be low scoring. I think this one's also going to be low scoring.
What do I keep saying? I'm not going to pick against Central, except against Chaminade until they like lose to someone else.
Right.
I'm like tempted to pick Norland here because, like you mentioned, Norland not showing a lot, not necessarily inspiring with their close win against Booker T. Central also struggled with Northwestern, like you said, down at halftime of that game. These 4 teams that we're talking about to end the show, like what makes this region so interesting is I don't know if they're all state title contenders, but I know anyone of them can beat anyone else. Like if they play each other in the playoffs, right? Like they're any of these Booker T or Northwestern clearly I think can upset either of these two teams if they run into each other in the playoffs. I will go with Central. I think you mentioned those sacks that Norland gave up. Like that, if that happens again, then it's going to be really tough for them to get their offense going. And obviously Armando Blunt right now might be the best defensive player in South Florida. Perfect guy to take advantage of that.
I mean, Central, Norland, Northwestern, Booker T.
I mean, Edison blew out Northwestern, 3 weeks ago?
And American Heritage, which not even involved in this part of it, but in 2M, we'll have a big say on what happens there. The 2M is ridiculous. I mean, the state is discussing getting rid of the Metro Suburban thing, and they might create some new format next season, but I don't know how the new format will work, but I'm all for maybe expanding this a little bit because 2M is so overloaded.
Yeah.
It
happened not that long ago. What was it when all the inner city schools were in 4A together or 5A? And
yeah, kind of like a super class. This is even worse.
Was it Steve Gallen had to basically be like, hey, we got to break this up because none of our teams, only one can win a state championship every year.
Well, Steve Gallen was upset about this format too.
Right, yeah.
So I think part of that, but thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for, following this show as you always have. And, we'll be bringing you coverage of the playoffs, of these exciting playoffs on MiamiHerald.com. So check out all our work there. And until next time, for David Wilson, I'm Andre Fernandez, and this has been Titletown South Florida.